Hey, y'all, we on the air. Y'all, listen, it is Tuesday at 8 o'clock p.m., and I'm on the air. Have you ever been in a situation where, like, the camera came on and you didn't expect it? That was kind of how we are tonight. A camera came on, I wasn't expecting it. But guess what? We are here, and I am glad that you are here. Matter of fact, you already know. Put it in the chat box where you're watching from. And we have Miss Barnes, I believe, from New York City is watching us tonight. Who else is watching tonight? Tell us what city you're watching from so that we can acknowledge you. Just put it in the chat. We're excited about bringing you some information tonight that is important. I was right. New York City, love it. So listen, we're looking forward to bringing you some information tonight that's going to help you in the area of home ownership. And I'm excited about it because we have a phenomenal guest tonight. Mocksville, North Carolina. You know, I had not heard of Mocksville, North Carolina. Thank you for being with us from Mocksville, North Carolina. And so we are excited about just sharing information with you, helping you to be in a better position because we believe in generational wealth. We believe in generational wealth. We continue to talk about it. We're going to continue to talk about it. And we're going to continue to just bring information to you to help you. Now, let's talk about the 4 pillars of generational wealth, just as a reminder. We talk about it every once in a while. It's good just to remind people. 1 is proper management of your current assets. We're talking about money management, managing your budget, managing your debt, managing your credit, proper management, right? Number 2 is having the proper insurance and investments, particularly for retirement. And as many of you know, September is Life Insurance Awareness Month. Life Insurance Awareness Month is the month of September. I've been talking about it on the radio show. We've been talking about it here. Added a couple new things to that whole thing about the radio. So as you know, we have the radio show at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday mornings on Praise 100.9. And with Melanie in the middle, Melanie Pratt, I do a money minute that happens somewhere between noon and 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. And then the radio show just asked me to also do a money minute. And so yesterday was the first money minute on 105.3, the R&B station as well. And so, but we've been talking about life insurance because it's Life Insurance Awareness Month. So want to make sure that we continue to make that we're properly covered and all those types of things that I even talk about in the book. So we have a lot of great things going on, talking about life insurance, talking about proper management of your assets. The 3rd pillar is business development. You know, having a business, having it properly developed, properly formatted. And, you know, I'm going to talk to Michelle a little bit about that today because she's got some great things that's going on in terms of business development and what she's doing with women and others as well. And then the 4th pillar, which is our key topic tonight, is real estate. Own you some real estate. Own you a little part of this world, right? And we're talking about personal real estate, as well as even if you have commercial real estate. So those are our 4 pillars of intergenerational wealth transfer, proper money management, proper insurance investments, business development, and home ownership. Because guess what? If you rent an apartment, you can't pass that on, right? You can't pass that on, but you can pass on real property. I'm talking about property that has a deed, right? I'm talking about the real property stuff, something that has to be filed with the Register of Deeds. That's the property I'm talking about. Now, listen, there's more people watching than they have put into the chat box. Make sure you do that. While you guys are putting your information in the chat box, I want to let you know of what's coming up. On the Real Money Coach Show, we have a really good lineup of people that are going to be on the show. We have next week, we have Ashley Scott. I'll show you a little bit about that before we end. She's the founder of the Freedom Georgia Initiative. The following week after that, we have Tony Harris Taylor. She just released her new book, which I'll show you, Virtual Networking for Drastic Results. And so she is a virtual networking guru. After that, we have Ambassador Lance Jones, who's going to come in, and he's going to be talking to us about the African Brain Bank. So that's just a few of the shows that are coming up. Beyond that, we have people coming in that's going to talk about how to go from Broadway to Wall Street and how to hack your credit score. So we got a lot of great things, a lot of great programming that's in store for you in the coming weeks. And I do want to announce that I will be doing my masterclass on Increase, Protect, and Dominate Your Money. That's a masterclass on Increase, Protect, and Dominate Your Money. You can register for that class at iPadEvents.com. We do have a flyer. Before we're done, we will let you see that flyer in terms of registering. So it is going to be a masterclass on my book, taking each of those topics. There we go. Thank you, Dante. Taking each of those topics and just digging in deep. 7-week class on Mondays at 7 p.m. starting on October 3rd. It's a deep dive. And what I'm really hoping for is an open dialogue. It will be via Zoom. And I'm really just hoping to be an open dialogue. You guys can ask me questions, all that good stuff. So that's coming up. A couple other things to make you aware of. I just found out that I have been asked to be on the speaking platform of Dr. Boyce Watkins' All Black Conference. That's the name of it, All Black Conference. It is coming up. Thank you, Dante. Coming up at the end of October here at the Sheraton Inn in Charlotte. And so, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of Boyce Watkins. Have been blessed to have him, at my book launch and do a couple programs with us. So we're looking forward to that. And I think that's all my announcements I have right now. So let's bring on Michelle. Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Tony?
I'm doing well. What's going on in Kalamazoo?
You know what? It looked like it might storm, so hopefully I can keep my internet.
so if you fade out, we'll know why, right?
Right.
Michelle, I was involved in one of your meetings this week.
Yeah.
That you call the squad. Tell us a little bit. I think that's a very interesting concept. Tell us why you started the squad.
Yeah. So I started the squad as a result of going through the Goldman Sachs 10K Small Business Program. And basically they said all business owners should have an advisory board. And I came up with the concept of the squad. And my dear friend Tony Jackson is part of my squad because these are people that I admire in their own businesses. And sometimes as a business owner, you need a sounding board of people that you trust. And I gathered this group of people, and their expertise are in areas where mine are not. So I need to surround myself with a tribe or a group of people that can help me make business decisions. And I'm just thankful that they give their time to me, like once a quarter to help me figure out, because in my head, like it sounds okay, but it's always good to have other counselors to help you make decisions. So that's what the squad represents, because we're taking Mitchell Consulting to another level that I've never been before, right? So I need others who have already paved the pathway in what they do to help me elevate to the next level as well. So
I think it's pretty awesome. I'm along for the ride, honestly. Let me tell you something. I was the only guy. I mean, because Tony wasn't there, he wasn't able to make. I was like, I'm the only dude on the squad here. I mean, but what I thought very interesting, Michelle, about it is that to me, even as supposedly one of the advisors, I don't know if I quite adhere to that, but I learned a lot from the other people too.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the value um, is the fact that we can learn from each other. I mean,
Yes.
we're all there to at your request to help you, but I think we learn from each other, and so
Yes.
I thought it was pretty neat.
Yes.
And you're
I
right there.
agree. I
Hmm?
agree. And I think that so really if we just took out me asking people to be there, it is really a mastermind, and I believe
100%.
masterminds help you jump leaps and bounds because you hear from others and their experiences, and then you're able to apply the learning to your own situation. Therefore you don't hit the pit holes and the stops along the way, because you have someone else that has already made it through it, and they're telling you what to do, like, because they already experienced it.
They already
So
experienced it.
yes, so it shortens um it
Your
it
learning curve,
it shortens the learning curve. Yeah.
right?
So
Absolutely.
you can do things in expedience when you have a mastermind that supports you.
It's interesting. I never thought about it. In some ways, this is a mastermind on Tuesday
Oh
nights,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
what happens is we have people who are watching from. I mean, look, we got North Carolina, we got New York City,
Mhm.
we got people all over the country that might watch this and might watch the replay, and we're going to learn from an expert tonight. And
Right.
when we learn from others, that's what mastermind is all about, right? It's about
Mhm.
bringing our minds together, learning from each other, so that we don't make we don't repeat mistakes. Because see,
Right.
there's two ways to learn, right?
Mhm.
Like you can learn from your own mistakes, or you can
Mhm.
learn from others' mistakes.
Yes.
And I was like, why not learn from others' mistakes rather
Exactly.
than making the mistakes yourself? Now, there's
Yes.
times when we got to go through, right? We got to
Right.
kind of,
You just gotta go through.
you
Yeah.
just got to go through. You just got to go
Mhm.
through. There's some things you have to
Mhm.
go through, and so, and that's what I love about our guest that's going to be with us tonight, is that she's very transparent about
Mhm.
her experience. And I think when we're transparent about
Mhm.
our own experiences,
Yeah.
then we can help others. But
Yes.
what
Yes.
happens so often is that we hold that inside, right? It's
Mhm.
like, if I make a mistake or if I struggle with something,
Mhm.
I don't want other people to know,
Right.
because that's a sign of weakness, or we might be afraid of being criticized, or
Mhm.
we want to look like we got it all together, right?
Right.
But the
Right.
reality is that we all then made mistakes, and we're not
Exactly.
done making them.
No. Mm-mm.
And
We're
so,
not. That's so funny because I listened to a podcast yesterday and they were talking about business owners and being your authentic self. Like, if you are
mhm,
your authentic self in everything that you do, you're not putting on airs. So people can really connect and identify with you and what you have to deliver, because you may be sent to someone to help them through something. But if you are not sharing your
yeah,
true self, then they will never get it,
right.
and we're just vessels. That's how I feel. I'm just a vessel.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Harvey Jones, hello, Harvey Jones from Birmingham, Alabama, right? And thank you, Harvey, for sending information this week about there's a national book, and it may be African American. I can't remember for sure if it was just African American. It looked like it now that I think about who was on the thing, but it's a book convention for
Oh,
authors,
okay.
and
Mhm.
Harvey's wrote a great book, and I
Oh,
believe that he's probably going, and he sent it to me.
congratulations, author.
Um, yeah, Harvey's an author. I mean, I've been sitting him,
Yeah.
taking pictures on social media in the library at all these author days and that type of thing. And so there's a book. There's a book in each of us, in every one of us.
There
I'm
is.
not dropping no hints, but
I know
there's a
you're
book.
not.
There's a book. There's a book in all of us, and
Mhm.
so thank you, Harvey, for sending that information to me. But I think being authentic, to your point,
Mhm.
is so important. And I think sometimes even we miss that even in the church, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because when we go to church, the
You you
routine. I
you
got to
put
go in
on your
there,
good
gotta look
clothes.
like I got it all
Oh,
together,
you
right?
covering it up.
You covering it up.
Yes.
And the reality is that we need to take off the mask. We
Yes.
need to be authentic so that we can help somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about, um, like I said, that's what I love about what you're doing. That's what I love about what our guest is doing. And hopefully we're doing that here too, is bringing people from different walks of life,
Mm-hmm.
that can help people by sharing their story or
Yeah.
their expertise or
Mhm.
both.
Yeah.
Um, and just I was thinking about Felice that talked about
Mm-hmm.
mental illness.
Yeah.
And we
You've
we
had some
had,
great guests.
yeah, Darren Henson uh,
Mm-hmm.
came in and shared some of his story and some of the things. And
Yeah.
so
The debt
it's been,
repair guy. Like, yeah.
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 James Hunt,
Yeah.
what is he? The celebrity
The
credit guru,
credit.
right?
Yeah.
The celebrity credit. And it's
Yeah.
interesting that, thank you, Harvey, put it in a National Black Book Festival, October
Nice.
20th through the 22nd in Houston, Texas. Um, and he was just sharing how he said you have these stars, you have these athletes, they
Mm-hmm.
make a lot of money, but guess what? If their credit is jacked, they still can't go buy the house they want on credit. They still can't buy the car they want. And they may not want to spend cash, right?
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the credit. I mean, it doesn't matter if your credit score is tore up from the floor up. It don't
Right.
matter how much money you made, right?
No.
So you got to get it fixed. And Monica's going to talk about that tonight, because I know
Yay,
last time
Monica.
I saw her in person, she really was excited about some of the things that she's seen in terms of credit repair, helping people get in homes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, and I gave her forewarning that I'm going to talk about this Bank of America thing. I've been
Okay.
on that thing. I can't let it go, right?
No, you
Um,
can't let it go.
I can't let it go because it's not all that it seems. And here's the thing: before I'll share this a little bit later, that the largest black-owned mortgage broker just announced their new program.
Okay.
Um, and they're headquartered out of Las Vegas,
Mm.
and they announced their program for Black and brown borrowers.
Okay.
Now, in their program, they say you can buy the house in any neighborhood you want, but you
Mm.
have to be Black or brown. Now, it's not a
Mm.
zero down, but it's close. It's like
Okay.
1% down, and some of those type of things. So
Mhm.
a lot of great things going on home ownership, and I'm not going to go too far down this road because we have an expert. Let me tell you about Monica Hayes. This is her second time appearing on our show, which I think is absolutely awesome. But she is a home buying educator, especially for women. Um, and she's been in the financial services mortgage industry for more than 20 years. She's assisted thousands of men and women obtain affordable housing and preventing foreclosure when she was an officer for a nonprofit lender. She has a special place for women who want to acquire and maintain home ownership. And she'll talk a little bit about the statistics of the number of foreclosures that happened in the first 2 years that actually are women. So without any further ado, without me rambling any longer, let's bring on Miss Monica Hayes. Monica,
Hi, Tony. Can you hear me?
we can hear you.
Yes.
How you doing?
All is well, and thank you again for the second appearance on your show. I appreciate
Hey, well, we didn't scare you away the first time. You agreed to come
that.
back. It took us a little while to get it on the calendar because we're busy, but I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
you again. Thank you.
And the thing that really kind of stuck out for me when you were here before was I think it was the first time I ever heard of the NACA program.
Mhm.
And I think that is a wonderful program. We can talk a little bit about that if you would like to. But tell us a little bit about your business and a little bit about your personal story. And then we can kind of get into some of these other areas.
Okay, well, like you said, my name is Monica Hayes, and I'm the owner of Baby Steps to Home. And I teach women
Mhm.
proper pathways to home ownership and strategies to prevent foreclosures. And when I came across this, when I was a loan officer, I came across this article that stated that women are 70% more likely to foreclose within the first 1 to 2 years of home ownership than men, regardless of education. And I was thinking, there is no way that number is correct. But then I had to think back when I was in my 20s, lost my very first home to foreclosure. And so I
Mhm.
was like, oh my God, somebody has to do something about this. And I was like, well, Lord, who's going to do something about this? And of course, God was knocking on my door saying, what about you? You have the knowledge now, you have the experience of experiencing a foreclosure. So why don't you reach back and help those that are having the same struggles that you had when you were coming up? And I had a BS in finance at the time. So the shame and the guilt around losing my
Mhm.
home, a lot of my friends didn't even know I had experienced a foreclosure because I was so ashamed with having a BS in finance. But if we really think about this, let's unlock this. They don't teach home ownership
They
in school. And
no.
I had a BS in finance, but I knew nothing about credit. They taught us debits
Mhm.
and credits, but they didn't teach us about, your credit history, home ownership, how to obtain it, how to maintain it, what is equity. None of those things were taught in school. So I
No.
felt like I was robbed with that education.
Well,
Yes.
and I often, and this is interesting because here we got three accounting, finance majors all on the screen together, right? So
Right.
this is like a convention of the accountants and all this, right?
Right.
Right. But I often talk about that too. I mean, I didn't learn anything about personal
Yep.
finance, and I
Neither did
went.
I.
Michelle, you got the same degree I got. Well,
Yep.
you got 3 or 4 after I did, but I stopped after one. But the same, but we got this accounting degree, and we didn't learn anything
No.
about personal finances. We learned about
Nothing.
cost accounting and just in time process, and all
Yeah.
these types of things, but nothing about personal finance.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
what do you really need in this world? I mean, you need personal finance.
Yeah.
Financial literacy.
We need
Financial
financial
literacy.
literacy.
Yes.
And home ownership, as we're talking about, is a pillar of intergenerational wealth. But you got to know what to do with any asset that you have, anything that you have. You have to know how to properly manage it
Mhm.
and manage the expectations.
Mhm.
Exactly. And I want to share a story with you that I didn't share the last time. When I had gone into banking, I wanted to get into the finance department and I had a BS in finance. So I'm thinking, okay, they're going to let me in with flying colors, right? So they refused to hire me in the finance department. And so I asked them why. Why wouldn't you hire me in the finance department? Because they had English majors, French majors, language majors, everything but finance. So I'm like, well, how did they get these positions? And I have a BS in finance. And what they finally told me, they said, because the school system doesn't teach you the proper way of life with credits and debits and what have you, they said it would take too long for you to unlearn what you
Wow.
learned in school. And they literally
Wow.
told me that. And I said, well, I don't accept that. So back then, we could take people to the EEOC. And so I threatened, I'm going to the EEOC if you don't hire me.
You go all the way
And,
to the top.
and they hired me for the position. And sure enough, I kept saying, well, that's not how I learned it in school. And so I had to stop myself because the lady kept looking at me. I told you. We
Wow.
didn't
Wow.
learn we didn't learn the proper way of real life in school. So
Right.
it was really the degree was really null and void. There
I
was
was
nothing
gonna say,
I
what's
could
the point of the degree?
Well,
yeah.
and you got to think about it. Okay, when you at least from us, from an accounting standpoint, you talk about credits and debit. It's the
It's
opposite
the
in the
It's
opposite.
the
banking.
Yeah.
It's the
It's
opposite
the
in
opposite
the
in the
opposite.
real
banking world,
world. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And people aren't aware of that until they get into it. And so I understood what they meant once they did hire me and they started training me. It's like I had to unlearn everything I learned.
Wow.
Unlearn everything.
Wow.
And so I understand that, because like they were saying, it's easier to teach someone than to unteach someone.
Correct.
You got to unteach them and then teach them again, and all those types of things. And I think that's why it's so important, the conversation that we have tonight, right? Because if we can share information that can help someone else from tripping up. Now, I've always said this. I always said there's two things that happen in your life that you have no idea what the real cost is. The two things that happen in life that you don't know the real cost is having a baby and buying a house, right? Them two events in your life, you have no idea what it's really going to cost you. Because when you buy a house, there's going to be something inevitably when you move in. Oh, I didn't realize that didn't work. You know, there's going to be something that has to be fixed. People say there's always something to do. Guys talk about a honeydew. There's always going to be something to do, and you really don't know what that is like if you've never been through it before.
That's right. And so my three reasons for why women foreclose more often than men is because, number one, a lack of knowledge. We just don't know what we don't know. Like you said, you go into home ownership. Oh, I got my house, I'm rocking it. And then that HOA fees are due, and then things start breaking, and you haven't saved money properly. And oh my goodness, budget, the B word, that's like. So, and then the second thing is self-worth. I mean, as I was praying to God, I said, why did this happen to me? And why did you allow it to happen to me? And so, I mean, it's like God was literally talking to me and saying, first of all, there was a lack of knowledge. And I did go through a period of depression. So when you're depressed, you can't think straight.
Right.
So the second thing was self-worth issues. So whatever your belief system is, it's going to affect your money and every aspect of your life.
Mindset is huge.
Every aspect.
We talk about it every week.
We do.
And so there was some self-worth issues I had to work through, and still working through some right now. I'm not going to act like I have it all together, because I don't. And so every day I die daily and ask, okay, how do we get through this? How do we get through this, Lord? Okay, I've messed up. How do I get through that? And the third,
let me ask you, Monica, before we move on to the third, do you feel like that there was some issues with the self-worth before the foreclosure, or was it after, or kind of tell me a little bit, expound on that a little bit?
Well, I can't go too deep because that's a whole nother story, but the self-worth issues came with after I was dating a particular person, and things didn't go the way I wanted them to. And just a lot of things were happening at one time in my life. And mentally, I just wasn't able to handle it as well as I thought I should have. And life comes at you fast. And the one thing that I'm learning now is that school doesn't teach us how to think. It teaches us what to think. And once I learned that was a game changer, because it really helped me during this pandemic not to get stressed about what was happening in the world. There's this book, is called Becoming Supernatural. I think every person on the planet should read that, because
Becoming Supernatural
by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think every person on the planet should read that. I mean, it literally got me through the pandemic with no worries, and things just actually were better during the pandemic because of me reading that particular book. But I can honestly say, if I hadn't read that book, I think the pandemic would have affected me in a negative way, because I didn't realize that I didn't know how to think, and I was taught what to think. So when you understand the difference, it's a life changer. It's a life changer for
I think that is profound. I
It
mean,
is.
that is worth the price of admission tonight, y'all.
Right.
Listen,
Yes, it is.
because teaching you what to think and teaching you how to think, two different
Two
things.
different
And
things.
Two different
yeah,
things.
Yes.
so you guys know, Michael Roberts is a mentor and that type of thing. And Michael's told us that he required all of his kids to go to law school. He said not to practice law. He said, but law school teaches you how to think. And
How
now
to
that you brought in
critically
the
think.
what to think
Mhm.
and the contrast between those two, I think that's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was thinking was, and then I still want you to get to your third point, is that sometimes we have this self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Mhm.
Where we might have a home, we might have we might have a certain a career level or banking account, or we're doing well and we're saving, and we feel like we don't deserve it, and we sometimes self-sabotage that.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes boils down to that self-worth, please. But God, I just want to put that in there. But God, but
That's
we have that self-worth piece that we think that we're not worthy of those things, and we don't worship things, obviously. But it is important to understand that we are worthy of nice things. We're worthy to live a life. It's just so funny. I put this in an email to someone today. Is John 10:10, it says that I come that you may have life and have it more abundantly.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we think we don't deserve that abundant life that
Mhm.
he died for us in order to have. But that's a
Mhm.
whole nother sermon, whole nother thing. But that's
Exactly.
what I was thinking of when you were saying that, is sometimes
Mhm.
we don't think that we deserve it, and really we do.
Right. We could go down another slippery slope, because there is DNA in our bodies from our
Yes.
ancestors, that until you break those generational curses, things keep repeating themselves. And I wasn't even
Mm,
aware that my mother had experienced almost losing her house 4 times. And I was like, whoa, she passed in 2020, but we had, a discussion, because we had so much time in 2020 to talk and just hash out a lot of things that we had experienced. She said, yeah, I almost lost my house 4 times. I was like, whoa, I didn't know that.
Wow.
And
wow.
so there are things in your DNA that's passed down from generation to generation, that if you don't break those generational curses, it just keeps repeating itself. And it's
Yes.
because we aren't talking to each other as well, at the dinner tables like we used to.
Right.
And so thank God, COVID actually gave me a lot of time to spend with my mother. And I saw where a lot of my DNA came from her, and self-worth issues, and losing things, and
Mhm.
gaining and losing. And I said, why am I on this roller coaster?
Why am I doing this cycle? Right.
Exactly. You
Right.
get into a DNA cycle until you know what happened in your past with your relatives. It's hard to figure out, okay, why am I in this cycle and how do I break it? And so once
Right.
you understand what the cycle is, you can break that generational
Yes.
curse and do something different. And then in 2017, I was estranged from my father at the time, but he lost his house in New Jersey, and he lost $300,000 worth of equity, and I lost like $75,000 worth of equity in my home. And back then, I didn't even know what equity was. So when people say, well, did you get the equity? I didn't even know what it was.
Not
Wow.
alone how to get it, right?
Exactly.
How to
How did
get
I
it.
get something I don't even know what it is?
Right. That's so good. That's so good. So you were going to tell us the third point. What was the third?
Oh, third thing is fear. That
Mm.
which I
Mm,
feared the most has come upon me. And
Mhm.
once I got into that realm of fear, oh, what if I lose my house? Oh, I'm gonna be embarrassed. Oh, I'm gonna lose this. So once that happened, it was a done deal, because
And that.
that which I feared the most has come
Mhm.
upon me. And people take the Bible verse with Job out of context. They say, well, God took everything from Job. No, God did not. If you read that, it says Job said, that which I
Mhm.
feared the most has come
Mhm.
upon me.
Mm.
So our fear causes the very thing that we're fearing to manifest.
Yes, because it's what you're thinking about, and it's the
It's
Exactly.
words
always
that's
on
coming
your
out your
mind.
mouth.
Your
Right.
thoughts become
Yes.
things, and
Yes.
everything in this universe started with a thought.
A
These
thought.
Right.
earrings started with a thought. The dress started with a thought. The chair started with a thought. So if you keep
Absolutely.
thinking
Mhm.
lost, you're going to get
To
lost.
get lost. It
Yes.
will
And
manifest
It
itself.
will
and if
manifest
you let
itself.
it come out of your mouth,
Yes.
because the word says, right, that my word go forth and it shall accomplish exactly for which I sent it. And if
Yep.
we speak negative thoughts
Mhm.
all the time, that's exactly what we're going to get back. We're going to get back exactly what we planted, exactly what we put out in the atmosphere. And I think fear sometimes is so crippling, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it just immobilizes us,
Mhm.
where I'm afraid to take chances. Sometimes
Mhm.
I'm afraid to just face situations head on. And
Mhm.
I joke about it a lot because I grew up, watching stuff like Fred Sanford, and all of
Mhm.
that.
Right.
And you just take the bill and you just throw it in a drawer and just ignore it, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we've gone through life sometimes. It's just ignoring those things because of fear, not dealing with them head on.
That's
Yes.
correct. And the Bible even says, cast down every evil imagination. So
Mhm.
every time you think, if that's not something that you want to manifest, you've got to stop that thought immediately
Yes.
and replace it with something that you want to experience in your life.
Yes. And you can do that. You can stop that
You
thought in
can.
its tracks, but
You
you
can
first
stop.
have to be aware that you keep thinking that thought.
That's right.
Right.
Because we're
Everything begins
habitual
with
thinkers.
self-awareness.
Yes.
Yeah, we're
Everything.
habitual thinkers.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
some people say, well, why can't I get a house? Because something in you first, self-worth, something in you says you don't deserve it. And then the
Mm.
next thing is, if you can't see yourself with it, you
Mm.
can't be with it. You have to
Mm.
first
Mm.
see yourself in the house before
Yes.
you
You got
can
to see
be in the
yourself in it.
house.
Vision. Vision.
Yes.
Vision.
Yes, we
Write
do.
the vision. Make it plain.
Make
Yes.
it
And that's
plain.
why I know people don't. Some people think that doing vision boards and these type of things are corny, or they think that it's not that But vision boards really can play a huge impact in your what you achieve, because if you can see it,
Yeah.
you can achieve it. And then certainly I think positive affirmations that we can say, and when you believe it, then
Mhm.
man, it can happen. God is just so faithful,
Yeah.
that he will give us the desires of our heart.
Mhm.
Yes.
And so what we have to do is we have to regulate our minds
Mm-hmm.
so that
Yes.
we're focusing on the right things. and
Right.
and so
Because we think we're waiting on God, but God is actually waiting on us to
Right.
make a decision, because most
Yes.
people can't make a decision. And when you're wavering, God's like, okay, well, I'm going to wait for you to make up your mind, and then we can
Mhm.
move forward. Because when you are decisive and not wavering, even though sometimes that sternness, sometimes you do need a little flexibility, because different situations have taught me that, okay, I can't be that stern. I have to allow a little bit of wiggle room for God to do his thing. But the
Right.
decision, like when after my divorce and I came back to the United States, because I was living in the Bahamas at the time. So I came back to the United States after my divorce, and I just made a decision. I
Mhm.
will I'm a homeowner. I didn't even think like I'm going to rent for more than 6 months. So 6 months was my deadline. But some
Mhm.
people can get a house in a week if they really believe this is for me. I'm getting this house in a week or within 24 hours, then it happens for them as well. So it's really all about a belief system.
It's what you believe.
Wow.
And what
We're
you were
adding
saying,
all these other things to it, but the main crux of home ownership is simply a belief system.
what was coming in my mind is the double-minded man is unstable in all of his
In
ways.
all its ways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's right.
So here's the thing, and I love this conversation. I think is so rich. But so now I got my belief right, Monica. I got my belief. I'm believing that I can own a home,
Mm-hmm.
right? What would be now give me the practical steps that
Right.
you would advise a person? I know you work mainly with ladies, but anyone for that matter. But
Mm-hmm.
what steps is next?
The next step is to find out what your affordability is.
Mhm.
Because if you don't know where your finances are going, you really don't know what you can afford. And it's free to go to a lender to find out, okay, what is my affordability and how much can I afford based on what I'm bringing in? Because I can tell you for a fact, I had a lot of UNCC students coming to me when I was a loan officer, and John C. Smith. It didn't matter what school they went to. They don't teach home ownership in schools.
Right.
So I had a young lady that came in, and she was at UNCC, and she said she came in. We always have to ask them, okay, what price range are you looking for? So she said, I want a $250,000 house. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Okay, I'm putting the information in the system. Then, of course, we have to say, okay, how much do you make? $9 an hour. So, and I couldn't get mad at her because I understood that she just didn't know what she didn't know. So I said, well, why would you like a house for $250,000? She said, well, my sister is a nurse and she has a house and hers is $250,000. And so I literally had to back it all the way up
Mhm.
and explain to her affordability. And she was driving a BMW. So by the time her $9 an hour working part-time went into the car, she had no money for a house. And of course, with women, we're so emotionally attached to homes. I mean, she started crying, and we think our self-worth is attached to a building, and it's not. And what I learned through being a a loan officer, is that men see homes more as an investment, whereas women attach the home to their self-worth. And so we have to change that scenario and teach people that this is an investment. And if you use it properly, it can bring you other benefits like refinancing, building generational wealth. So once people understand why home ownership is important, then we can move forward with them.
There's two things about that. I think it's very interesting. It just took me back because we had a friend, and I mean, he would just move all the time. I mean, he buys house, he'd live in for a year and sell it. And his wife, like, she was tired of that, right? Because she wanted a home. She wanted, yeah. But one of the things I want you to talk a little bit about is this. There's a difference in my mind, and maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, between what you qualify for and what you can afford.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so because every lender is different. Like, I was helping a client and they were going to approve her based on 57% debt to income ratio. And debt to income, all that means is you take your total debt and you divide it by your income. So she was literally at 63% debt to income ratio. So I wasn't aware of all of this while she was talking to the lender. She just said, could you jump on the call? And so as she was speaking, I was like, oh my God, you're not ready for this. So different lenders have different criteria for your loan approval. So I would never advise an individual to get into a house at 57% DTI, debt to income ratio, because they're not considering the funds that you have to spend to eat. your gas,
Right.
your play money. I mean, they didn't consider any of that. And if they had put her in the house at 57%, I promise you she would be foreclosing within a year or less.
Right.
Because a lot of the lenders just have different criteria. And I will admit that when I learned more about housing when I was a loan officer at NACA than when I worked at the big financial institutions. That's when I really learned about home ownership. And you know, the biggest expense in almost 99% of my clients was food. And I can just talk about myself. Let me tell you my story. Because when I had gotten the divorce and I wanted to acquire a new home, I kept saying, why am I not saving? Why am I not saving? And so they were saying, well, have you gone through your bank statements for the past 3 months to see how much you're spending? Where is your money going? And I was one of those persons. The budget was like a bad word. As long as I'm paying my bills on time, I think I'm okay. But I had to sit down. I did the budget and found out that I was spending $700 per month just eating out. And I was like, what? Have I lost my mind? And then the groceries were like $300 for one person.
Wow.
So I was literally spending $1,000 per month eating out. So I kept going back through my bank statements. I said, there's no way I'm doing this. And 99% of my clients, their biggest expense, and it's usually higher than their mortgage or their rent, because people think I have to eat. I've got to eat, but you don't have to eat $1,000 worth of food every month.
Right.
Well, you know, today it's the DoorDash, it's the
Right.
Uber Eats,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
those things that people do out of convenience, and it just eats away at their money because you know we don't sit down and cook a meal anymore. You
That's
know, and
right.
those types of things. So
We eat out of habit.
yeah,
Yeah.
Not
And
that
they
you
don't
have
realize
to.
it.
It's just a habit. You're used to eating 3 times or 4 times or ordering DoorDash. Once you really look at your budget and say, wow, if you don't know where your money is going, you can't manage it. It's managing you.
Exactly.
wow, that's
Wow.
pretty. So Monica, tell us a little bit about what you do to help people who are in a home, they find themselves in a home, right? And you know, we talked a little bit about this on the radio. My concern was because August was the first time in several months where, on an average across the nation, homes actually sold at or below the selling price. For the last year, they've all been selling above even the asking price. And so, you know, you have people that have way over, you know, and we've seen ridiculous things here in Charlotte, right? You know,
Yes.
$50,000, $60,000 above the asking price. You've seen things where even their appraisals weren't enough to cover it, so the house didn't have that much equity in it, and these types of things that are happening. But what I want to get to is when someone's in a house, if someone's watching today and they find themselves in a position where they're overextended on their mortgage or something like that, what does your organization, what do you do to help them?
First, we have to go through the budget.
budget.
We have to go through the checking accounts to see where is the money going. Once you have control of where the money's going, 9 times out of 10, people can stay in their homes. They just haven't sat down and looked to see where is the money going. And like I said, 99% of the time, it's the food, it's the eating out, it's the entertainment. So usually, and let's talk about equity, because like I said, I didn't know what equity was when I had my first house when I was in my 20s. So equity is the difference between what you owe now and what the market value of your house is. So if let's give an example, say your house now is worth 300,000. I'm doing easy math. Say it's worth 300,000. and you owe 100,000. Say you've been in it for 2 years, and you bought it at 150,000, and now is you only owe 100,000, and your value right now is 300,000. So
Mm-hmm.
that means you have $200,000 of equity to play with, to work with. So I have had clients where we just went in and refinanced and gathered all of their debt. Like, and I do help men. I know a lot of people say, well, why do you just focus on women? I do help men. So one of my male clients, what we did was he was paying out monthly about $2,500 per month on bills. His cars, he had 3 cars, the mortgage, credit cards. So what we did was we gathered all of those bills. We wrapped the car into his mortgage payment. So with the refinance, what you can do, because he had been in the house since 2005, so he had about $200,000 of equity. But all of his bills combined, he was spending out $2,500. So once we rolled the cars and the credit cards into the mortgage, refinanced it at a lower rate. He had 2 mortgages, and I will never understand 2 mortgages. That's called creative finances. You should never, ever have 2 mortgages when you're first purchasing your house. That's something that the banks came up with, which is
you come out of closing with 2 mortgages. That
Right.
Yeah, something's wrong with that. Never ever do that. And I don't know how they make up reasons as to why they're putting 2 mortgages on your house when you're first purchasing a house. So we rolled in the second mortgage, which was like 16%. The first mortgage was 10%. So we got the interest rate down to 3.25%, rolled all the debt in. So his one payment after we rolled all those debts in was like $1,200 for the month. So he saved $1,300 per month, because most people don't know that they can refinance, and they don't understand what equity is. So until you know, lack of knowledge, and we don't know what we don't know. So even back when I had my home, I could have rolled my debt in, but I didn't know what equity was.
Didn't know what it was or how to use it. Yep.
Yes. So refinancing. And then I had another client. She decided to sell her home because she was over her head in debt, school fees. She had like $275,000 in equity. She sold at the height of the real estate boom, and she had $275,000. So she went ahead and sold her house, had $100,000 worth of debt she needed to get out of. And so now she's got $175,000 sitting there waiting until the market falls. And, they're predicting January, February 2023, the houses will be back to normal. The housing prices will be back to normal. So she had a strategy. So everyone is different, and everyone has different scenarios that they're dealing with. So there's no one size fits all to everyone. You can't do it like that. You have to look at each individual's circumstances.
And so that's pretty much what you do. Is you do counseling and coaching to help people through those processes.
That's correct. I do a budget analysis. That's the first thing we have to do. Where are you financially? Where is your money going? Where can we cut back so that you can keep the house? But that is not an option for everyone. It's not. Everyone's situation is different.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting that Harvey Jones just put in there, can you address Heloc loans? And I was going to actually ask you about Heloc and what your feelings were on Heloc. We're seeing a lot of different things in terms of people using first position Helocs and some of these other types of instruments out there to actually, pay their homes off early. What's your feelings on some of those things?
Well, I'm not a fan of HELOCs because usually the interest rates are way too high. I'm not a fan of them, but if people can qualify for them easier than refinancing the home, then I say go for it. Like I said, every individual situation and circumstance is different. So I don't just say don't do it. I have to look at what is your circumstance, what is the interest rate, how much more is that going to burden you with the payment. So it's a big picture, but I'm not a fan of HELOCs. I'm a fan of refinancing.
I have not been a fan of HELOCs in terms of a second position either. Just because now you go back into that situation where you have two mortgages.
Right.
Yes.
Where I have seen it work is when there's a first position HELOC where you don't have a mortgage, you only have the HELOC, and you got it at an interest rate that's low enough that will allow you to take a HELOC and actually use it just like a checking account where you're putting your deposits in, because it's a daily rate. If you get the rate at the right interest rate, I've seen it work for people to pay off their mortgages in 8 to 10 years in some cases. And
Correct.
So, but again, every situation is different. He was wondering advantages and disadvantages of the HELOC. So I think you mentioned one was the interest rates. That's can be a disadvantage in a lot of cases. And I think too, for me, part of it is if I have a choice of having debt attached to nothing and a debt attached to my home, I'd rather have it attached to nothing.
Yes.
If we're talking all things equal, because if something happens and I have a credit card and I have credit card debt and the credit card debt goes awry on me, they're not going to come take my house.
Right.
But if I have a HELOC or mortgage and something happens, now my house is on the line.
Right.
And so that's why fundamentally I had not been a big fan of HELOCs or second mortgages in the past. So
I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. So what I've done, because of the students that I've been dealing with, I've actually expanded to credit restoration, because the majority of, like, over 50% of my students have subpar credit. So then we have to work on credit issues. And a lot of us brown and Black people are not aware of how powerful credit is. Until I got to my 800 credit score, I wasn't even aware of how powerful it was until I had totaled my car through water damage, walked in the dealership, showed them my credit score, and that was it. They didn't ask for financials, because your credit score is your financial statement.
Right.
When they see an 800 credit score, you start making demands, because the salesperson was trying to literally force me to give her $20,000 down. And I said, no, I have an 816 credit score. I'm not giving you nothing. So you can go in boldly, because good credit, you are bold when you walk in. But my other financials, I was like, I hope they don't look at my financials, because they're not, I got to do a little switching around here, right?
Well, and that's the important part about what you're saying too. As a self-employed person, it's always a challenge when you're buying some things, because you don't have the regular paycheck, you don't have the W-2 earnings that gets reported through that credit system as well.
Correct.
And so, but there are ways to set that up too, like putting yourself on payroll, and those type of things that I think can help us. But you're right. If your credit score is right, you just walk in the dealership, walk out if you want.
That's right. And you demand, you tell them you are not putting, that's the purpose of having a good credit score. I have another friend, she had like a 795, but she put money. I said, why did you put money down? You have an excellent credit score. That's the purpose of having it. The ball is in your court. I told him I was not putting any money down, and I did not want over a 2% interest rate. And I got a 1.9% interest rate, no money down, and walked out with almost a $50,000 car.
Wow.
There it is.
Yeah.
So let's deal with a couple questions over here. Tanya Applegate, nice that you're with us tonight, Tanya. Yes, we are on YouTube. It is The Real Money Coach on YouTube. And then Harvey said his last vehicle he purchased was at 0% interest because of his credit score. And it is a nice car. I've been in it. So listen, so
I got one question for Monica before you close, Tony.
yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the interest rate situation we're in now and how that's affecting home buyers?
Great question.
And we forgot about the Bank of America thing.
And let's touch on that real quick.
So let me try to touch on that really quick. So with the Bank of America thing, it's not a scam. I've gotten several calls saying, is it a scam? Should I do it? So what people aren't aware of is Bank of America is the biggest lender for NACA. So they never had closing cost down payments through NACA, but now they're just offering it to the general public because they're having to compete with Rocket Mortgage, Loan Depot, these people that are just churning out mortgages. Whereas, you know, with the regular banking system, it takes 35, 45 or more days to close. So they're having to compete. And that's all this is about. It's about competition, and they're trying to stay in the game. But they are the number one lender for NACA mortgages.
And we know that they're the biggest contributor to NACA. And the program seems very similar to NACA, where my criticism of it is how it's being promoted in terms of that this is something for Black and brown people, and it's not. It's for everybody. And you know, so let's not paint it as something. But I told even our listeners, even as I did a whole hour thing on it the other night, but take advantage of it. I mean, it's a great program.
It's not a scam. They're just competing with.
It may create some more, you know, gentrification. It may create some more stuff like that, but it's not. The program is for real.
Yes.
And if we need to, how we combat that is get to the table.
Yes.
Get to the table and get as many of those loans as we can, and not necessarily complain about other people getting them. Let's go after them ourselves and not think that everything's always, you know.
Right. And one more thing, I know you have to go, but one more thing, because now is the time to become a homeowner, because I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there are whole neighborhoods where they're just leasing the brand new houses because they don't want us to own anything. And when the investors go in and buy, they're buying up over 50% of our neighborhood. So that's not good either. When you have, you know, over 50% renters in your neighborhood, it's just a fact that renters do not take as good care of the homes as a homeowner.
Right.
But now really is the time to start preparing. Get yourself prepared. Go see a lender, see where you are, to see, okay, what do I have to do to be in a home by January or February? Because the prices are going to drop and the interest rates. I know they're going up right now, but they're predicting by next year, everything's going to kind of be balanced back out. So now is the time to start preparing to become a homeowner.
What we had very high prices and low interest rates. And what's happening is now the interest rates have gone up, and right now still the houses are still high. But once all that begins to, like you say, balance off and level to somewhat of a normal you know, housing market, you're saying that's the best time to really then go ahead and buy, but you can't get ready. You got to be ready when that time.
You got to be ready.
Get ready now. Start preparing now. And I know NACA gets a lot of slack because when I was there, I had over 1,600 clients, and it's like it just kept adding daily. So they're stretched with the number of loan officers that they have. And yes, it does take a long time, especially if you are not on top of your paperwork, and if they ask you for something, you get it to them ASAP. And I have to admit, most of the Northerners that I work with, you ask them for something, boom, they've got it that day. You ask a Southerner for something, it might take 2 weeks to get it. And then they have to update the system again. So then they're going to ask you for more documentation because you took 2 weeks to get one document. Now everything's out of whack in the system because everything is date driven. So if you do your part and you stay on top of your counselor, you can get through there because you can't beat their interest rates. And I got my second home through them at 1.125% interest, 30 years fixed, and you can't beat that with a stick.
See, and we need to tell a little bit about NECA, because it is no money down, no closing costs,
no
very
fees.
low interest rates, no fees, and it's
You can use it on a second home?
NCA.org. Huh?
Say it again.
No fees.
No closing costs, no
No
fees,
closing costs, no fees,
no points,
interest
no
rate.
PMI, none of that.
None of that.
And literally, after I left the closing table, I literally got a check for $3,900 after I closed. So that's definitely no money down.
Right.
So
And
they're legit. And yes, it does take a long time. Like I said,
can you use it on a second property?
You gotta have a little patience. You know, you gotta
Yes.
have some patience, because it takes a while. And one of the things that I think is really good about the program is the fact that even if you don't end up getting a loan through them, if you follow their steps, it'll get you ready to
The
get a loan
educational
anywhere.
part is dynamic. Like I say, I was in banking over 15 years before I went to NACA, and the things I learned at NACA, it was priceless, because the conventional banking, they teach their loan officers that PMI is a requirement, and it's not. If PMI is a requirement, why is it that all banks don't require it? So it can't be a requirement. That's the question you have to ask when people say you have to have PMI. There's something called lender paid mortgage insurance, and then they have borrower paid mortgage insurance. So if I'm a borrower, I don't want to have to pay the bank's insurance, because if you foreclose, not only are you paying the bank's PMI, they're going to put you out, resell the house, and still get money for you foreclosing on the house. So they're in a win-win.
And you paid for it.
And you paid for it, right?
Paid for them to put you out of your house. So no, PMI is not a requirement, and you have to keep searching until you find someone that does not require PMI. And of course, NACA does not require PMI.
Now, and for what I've seen with NACA, and if you look at the maps and the Census bureaus, to me, after this last census, it seems as though there's a lot more properties that are open to being part of the NACA program, because if I'm understanding it right, that there's, I'm not.
Okay, let me explain. Because people think that you have to live in certain areas to get a NACA home, and that is not true. You just have to be able to afford the home that you want. And a lot of people can't afford to live on Christenberry, and that may be where they want to go. But if your affordability isn't there, you can't get approved for that. So they do have a limit. I think they went up to 449,000, but don't quote me on that. I'll have to look that up. But I think the housing price maximum went up to 449,000, but you have to be able to afford the 449,000. And the other criteria is you can't be a homeowner while you're purchasing the home unless you prove that home is being sold for you to move into a new home.
So it's not a first-time home buyer, but it is the fact that you can't own another home.
Correct. So you can put your house up for sale, and you have to have evidence that it is being put up for sale, and then you can purchase another home through NACA.
Awesome. It's an awesome program.
Yeah,
it is. I send people to it all
wonderful.
The time, and just tell them, just be patient.
No, do their part. If your loan counselor asks you for something, get it ASAP.
Get it in.
Because if you wait a week, then the system has to update for that week that you missed from not getting the document like in an expedient manner. Get it to them as soon as they ask for it that day. Don't wait a week or 2 weeks. Now everything has to update in the system because of date tripping.
Well, and when I say patient, because I think what I hear is that when someone wants to get an appointment with a counselor, it's not like I can call and get one next week. I mean, it's gonna be, you know, it might be a couple weeks or a month before I get that first appointment. But you, generally speaking, from what I can see, once you're in the program, then things can move pretty quick. But it's just getting, because you got to go through
educational class. It's an educational class you have to take. It's 4 hours and it's very informative. Like I said, they're educating you on home ownership, whereas the other banks, they just throw you in a home, put PMI on you. They don't care if you foreclose or not, because they're going to get their money both ways.
Yeah.
Right. Whether you foreclose or not, they're still going to get their money.
So Monica, let's make sure, Dr., that we put up her contact information. If someone wants to get in contact with you, Monica, how will we do that? And that type of thing.
My website is www.babysteps2home.com. And that's BABYSTEPS2home.com. And the phone number is 704-266-6076. And please leave your name and your number for me to call you back. Because people call and they say, well, I called you. It's like, did you leave a message? No. Okay. Now I have to have ESP to know that you called me.
That is awesome. Well, Monica, it's been very, very awesome to have you back on the show, sharing great information, inspiring people to, you know, get their budget right. It starts with the budget. It's with the budget, right? Whether you want to get in a home or stay in a home, it always comes back to what? Having the budget or spending plan, whatever you want to call it. So listen, thank you so much once again for spending some time. I know we went a little over, but I think it was just great information for people. And if you are watching this and you know someone that needs this information, they can go to YouTube/The Real Money Coach. They can watch this recording. It'll be up on Facebook for a few days. You can go to our private Facebook group. If you're not part of our group, like us on Facebook, join our private Facebook group, and continue to get this type of information every week.
And we do have available business funding for business owners. We have startup funding and secured credit cards where you can put $200 down to start building your credit. So if you go to my website, all of that information is there. And thank you, Tony, again for a second visit on your show.
Awesome. I didn't even know about the business part. See, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. So make sure you go to their website, check it out.
Yeah, I've expanded to business funding and credit repair, credit restoration.
Wow.
Awesome.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. And we need it all. Yeah. So listen, you guys have been listening to The Real Money Coach. You've been watching us again tonight. Thank you for being here. We'll see you on Saturday morning, or we'll hear you. You'll hear me on Saturday morning at 7:30, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with Ashley Scott, and we're going to talk about the Georgia Initiative. Bless you. Have a great night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, wait. Hey, y'all. I forgot.
Oh, happy birthday.
Dante. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Dante.
Come on, Dante.
Happy birthday.
Hey. Appreciate y'all.
So
thank you, Dante, for all you do in the background.
I would say that would be a problem. That would be a problem if I tried to do that. I sing happy birthday to you. All right, brother. You got happy birthday to you, man. Thank you.
Stay in your lane, Tony. Stay in your
lane. Stay in my lane. Stay in my lane. You got it. All right.
Look, I heard them pastors got low key vocals though. Them pastors got vocals. We know them pastors start them songs up at church.
No, man. I wonder I have to bring a soloist with me.
All right, y'all.
All right. Yeah, have a good night. God bless you.
Good health.